Well, we're still at the we're actually on our way to the Southwest Regional NMRA Convention in Flagstaff, Arizona. Look at the beautiful scenery out here.
Man, I'll tell you what, Arizona is really diverse. You wouldn't think so. You think of Arizona and cacti, but not necessarily.
There's a little bit of everything here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're down here studying the sandstone cliffs in part because we're building sandstone cliffs. This is Dave's Thunder Mesa Studios. He has his own YouTube channel, Thunder Mesa Studios. And we wanted to stop in and see his railroad. I also wanted to talk to him about his technique for making sandstone cliffs because I've been studying his videos and trying to figure out his technique.
Man, I'll agree there. The going back and forth on this, wow.
And I guess you could call part of our trip down here research.
Oh, everything with us is research because it's all beautiful countryside. We want to duplicate it.
Absolutely. And our canyon isn't quite that tall, but this is actually quite similar to what we want to do.
Right.
In our big tall, it's a 11-foot high set of cliffs in the big canyon. But there's all kinds of just interesting, different kinds of rock outcroppings and, in this case, petroglyphs.
Right.
And we wanted to, do some research here and figure out what would be the best look for our big canyon.
Right.
So as we mentioned on Sunday's show, Dave has the most interesting technique for carving his cliffs. He layers the insulation board, the extruded styrene insulation board that you get at Home Depot and that most people are using for scenery nowadays. But then he carves into that using a fine wire brush with like fine brass wires to create this stratified look that you see here. It's really stunning. So we decided that this would be a great technique to use on our big, huge 12-foot high canyon on our 20th scale railroad. So we've been watching Dave's videos on his YouTube channel where he describes how he does this, and then we've had to modify his technique slightly because we're working in such a larger scale. So just like Dave, I've gone in and carved the basic shape, or cut the basic shape, if you will, using a hot wire cutting tool. It looks sort of like a table saw, but it uses a hot wire and it goes right through this styrene foam. And then I'm coming back with a Sureform tool that you can get at the hardware store. It's like a little rasp, and I'm smoothing and shaping further with that. Makes a big mess, but it gives you the ability to really shape the foam insulation into more or less what you want. Then once I have the basic shape all roughed in with my hot wire cutter and my Sureform tool, I'm ready to start carving with the wire brush. This is one of the wire brushes that I've been using. It's a larger and stiffer wire brush. It's really great for some of these effects, but you can see how it carves in this stratification that you see. Really, it's just really easy to do, although I must say the results that I'm getting are nowhere as nice as what Dave is coming up with. But the more I do this, the better I'm getting at it, and the closer I'm getting to results that I'm happy with. But as I watch Dave's videos and look at Dave's layouts, it's like, well, I got a long way to go before I come up with anything that looks that good. I've been using this little small wire brush. It has like a stainless steel bristle, and that's stiffer, and it makes for a much rougher texture. And because it's smaller, I can kind of get down into some of these smaller places with it. So check that out. That's really got a sort of deep texture to it.
Right, I like it.
It's, I like the little brush.
That's mechanical weathering, I'll tell you.
Yeah, no kidding. But I'm finding that there's a whole bunch of different techniques, each producing, a different end result. And so variety is the spice of life, as they say.
It sure is.
Now, one of the things Dave pointed out is once you get this carved, it's all sort of fuzzy and pitted in ways that don't look that realistic. More importantly, they really preclude your ability to paint it. So he comes in with a heat gun.
Oh.
And it just kind of glosses over the surface. And the first time I tried this, I completely melted everything I did.
Oh, dear.
There's a technique, as with all things, and I tried using a lower heat setting. That didn't work. So I think the key is to use a high heat setting, but then keep the gun moving around and pay really close attention to what's going on so you don't just destroy all of your hard work. But if you do this right, you can, in areas where you really want to smooth the surface out, you can kind of smooth the surface out. And in most areas, you're just looking to sort of knock down that fuzziness.
Right.
And get rid of those little balls of material that are still hooked on and just kind of mess up your whole process.
I'm lost. Now, what part of Arizona is this?
The Pink Cliffs, maybe?
This is, that? Oh my gosh, that looks pretty real.
And this is after I applied the heat, and you can see that it's just kind of glossed it over without destroying the detail. And there's a knack to that.
Yes. Boy, when they talk about Mother Nature's paintbrush, you're not kidding.
This is all Bear paint from Home Depot.
It's all bear paint.
Bear.
Isn't all paint bear?
You see those little bottles? The guy at Home Depot put me onto that. He says, you can buy little samples. You don't have to buy a whole gallon or a whole quart or anything. You can just, and for what we're doing here, I want a whole variety of colors. I don't need a whole bunch of material. So he says, well, just buy those little sample bottles. Saves a lot of money.
That is a grand idea.
As to my usual technique, I'm sort of going dark to light. So I started by putting a darker color, and then I just keep lightly brushing colors over the top of that and lighter colors over the top of that. And then if I go too far with that, I come back and put some more darker color back on and just keep working it back and forth. The more it looks like cliffs, the more I like it. And when it doesn't look like cliffs, I reverse the process and start over.
Oh, you mean that we get back in the car and we head for Arizona again?
Or at the very least, load up Dave's YouTube channel again
Oh.
and watch his videos over and figure out what I did wrong.
Well, it's looking good. I mean, even the floor looks like actual water.
Yeah, and the thing about this area on the layout, it is the floor.
It
goes
is.
all the way from the floor to the 12-foot high ceiling, which makes for a tremendous amount of cliff face to build through here.
No kidding.
But I like it.
I do too.
It's turning out pretty good.
Plus, we're adding our own version of cliff dwellers.
Yeah, Dave's got Jimmy the dynamite-eating goat on his layout, and we've got it, and it's just a fun little detail.
I didn't even think about it. I just come up with some really wild ideas every once in a while, like this thing.
Yeah, this is the suspension bridge that you built over to Mad Jack's cabin.
That's right. It'll keep you in suspense, all right. There it is.
That's why they call it a suspension bridge. I always wondered.
That's why.
That's why. Anyway, this is the actual view of Mad Jack's. It's way up on the side of the cliff, which makes that bridge even more precarious.
Yeah, it's been a real cliffhanger.
Anyway, if you want to learn how to do these techniques, go to Dave's channel, Thunder Mesa Studios. And if you want to subscribe to our channel, here comes your opportunity, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Sunday. See you then.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.